Um, Hi, everyone. Super excited to have you here today. My name is Porter. I'm a part of the core team at SheFi. Super excited to bring you to this crypto career panel with Masari. We have four amazing women from Masari here with us today. We're really excited to dive into their career trajectories, what they love about Web3, advice they have for women looking to get into the space, and all that fun stuff. As we're going along, if you have questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll try and get those answered at the end. But for now, I'm going to pass it off to Emily to give us a quick overview on herself and Masari, and then we'll do a little bit of intros and we'll get into it.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Porter. We're so excited to be here. We have a good core team of women at Massari, so we're always very excited to be speaking to the broader community. My name is Emily Coleman, and I'm the VP of Marketing here at Massari. And just a kind of quick backgrounder on my entry into crypto. I kind of by fluke fell into the space in 2014, and I worked for an exchange called Shapeshift for about 4.5 years, and I headed marketing. But as the first full-time employee, literally learned every other facet of that world there. I then went into the agency side, and I worked for a crypto agency called Waxman, and I did a lot of PR work for various crypto firms. Then I came in full-time to Masari. So it's been a really fun ride for the last year. So what does Masari do? So we are a data and research platform, and we provide a whole host of services, tools, products to both institutional players as well as individual professionals within the crypto ecosystem. And essentially, what does that mean? What does it mean to have tools like this available to you? So for a lot of people, if we're looking on the institutional side, we have kind of the gamut of various types of institutional players, from big tech, exchange, traditional finance, TradFi space, all across the board. Some of them are a little bit deeper into the crypto journey. So for them, it's a lot more about maintenance, learning more about how they can continue to get deeper into this space, say an exchange, listing tokens, like making sure they have compliance and safety mechanisms set there. For players that are just now dipping their toes, so a lot of traditional finance, big tech, it's a lot more about what does this world mean for our ecosystem and how do we start to get involved. So we provide a lot of various offerings to allow them to feel safe within those environments. So on the data side, it's about digging deeply into the fundamentals and the data sets. And then we also help contextualize that with research. So that's kind of a full gamut of or in a nutshell, what Masari does. And we're really excited because in the next 3 to 6 months and really within the year ahead, we have so much more coming down the pipeline to help a lot of these institutions as well as individuals with their crypto journey.
Awesome. All right. On my screen, I have Rena next. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, of course. So my mic is on. Awesome. So my name's Rena Ba, and I am on the protocol services team, which is kind of this outsourced investor relations service for DAOs, and I am on the business development side.
Awesome. Marcia?
All right. My name is Marcia Boes. I run Masari Research, which you can loosely translate into the crypto equivalent of broker research in traditional finance.
Awesome. Karen?
Hey everyone, I'm Karen Shen, and I'm a research analyst on Massari's asset intelligence team.
Amazing. Okay, we're so excited to get to hear from all four of you across so many awesome different parts of Masari. I think it's going to be super relevant for everyone here. Emily touched on this a little bit, but would love to hear from each of you just to start off your journey into crypto and Web3 and what led you to Masari specifically. I think it'd be really awesome to hear that. I'm gonna go with Karen first.
So I consider myself fairly new to the space in comparison to a lot of my team members. I think I bought Ethereum for the first time in June 2021. And even at that point, it was like a hype thing. I didn't really understand the technology. How I really got into it was a couple of my friends started working in the crypto space, and I just sensed that they were so passionate about what they were building. And I think that carries through in the crypto space in general, just like everyone loves what they're building. And so I started digging deeper. It wasn't until I like bought my first NFT that I like fell down the rabbit hole of like really going on Twitter and Discord and researching on my own. So yeah, that's kind of like that's only been in the past like year. How I landed in Masari, I think I already knew about Masari as just a leading research platform, and I was looking for a job full time in crypto where I can really learn. And surprisingly, that's actually really difficult to find, like an entry level job where I can learn about all the different areas within crypto. And the Massari Asset Intelligence team was offering that. And yeah, but in terms of how I got the job, it was really just I applied online. I read every one of March's articles on how to get a job at Massari, and that really helped.
Oh, I love that. That's super cool. I think that's a great segue. Marcia, if you want to share on your journey as well, and then maybe later we can touch on those articles that Karen just mentioned.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so I've been around working for a while. I was an investment banker for a little bit over a decade. Spent a long time in Hong Kong, and then when I moved to the US 8 years ago, I wanted to do something different. I was at that point in time, not that was in 2014. I just started to become aware of crypto and blockchain, but initially didn't really have the network to join like a cool startup or anything, or was deep enough into it. So I worked for Thomson Reuters for a couple of years. And what I tried to do there is to seek out opportunity internally to get involved in like blockchain and crypto initiatives. And in 2017, at the height of the ICO boom, that kind of like first led me towards Masari, or actually that was more early 2018 when we were looking at data companies or companies, and Masari had just launched. So that's how I first found out about Masari. But importantly, ICOs for me, that was like, hey, as a former banker, capital raising on the blockchain. And that's kind of like when I started to really dive deep into Ethereum. And I was like, wow, I got FOMO. I was like, I have to work in this industry. This is like amazing. And so I initially worked for a startup that was focused on traditional institutions and crypto, building basically software for institutional investors to invest in crypto, like an order and execution management system. As soon as I joined the company, I asked one of the founders to introduce me to Ryan, the CEO of Masari. And yeah, so Ryan and I had kind of been talking for like 3 years and trying to see if there was an opportunity to work together. And then the stars finally aligned, like, I don't know, like early last year. And that's when I joined Masari.
Okay, super cool. That's a really awesome origin story. So that's amazing. All right, and pass it off to you, Rena.
Yeah, so I had a little bit of a different journey. Definitely very new, just like Karen, but I came into the space on more the policy side. When I was focused fully on politics policy through my graduate studies, I was told by almost everyone, find that one thing that to you is special. You feel like you could dedicate your career to, find that niche for you. And for me at that time, everyone around me was already in the space. So I got really into, okay, where is the alignment between crypto policy? Can I find my place in that? And because of that, I actually found Ryan's Twitter, who was really active in the policy space, got familiarized with Masari, read the crypto thesis, which kind of formulated a lot of my own viewpoints on how we can approach the policy side. And then realized, I actually really just want to work full-time in this space, and was looking for opportunities there. And funnily enough, I kind of love this story, but the day that I saw Masari post a position that aligned well with what I wanted to do, my skills, I actually met someone named Jack Purdy, who will kind of become this mentor of mine, who is on that exact team. And that was just kind of a sign for me to like, this is it, apply. And I was prepared enough through research to just be involved in the space where when this opportunity came up, I was ready to seize it.
That's awesome. I'm very fortunate to have met Jack a couple months ago, and he was an awesome resource for me. And I don't even work at Massari, so can definitely imagine that he's been wonderful for you. Emily, I know you touched a little bit on your exchange background, but is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, my journey was also, my background prior to working in tech and in crypto was actually in ski resort marketing, food and bev, hospitality tourism. So completely different world. So I sometimes liked to tell this story because I think some people get like really in their head, like if I don't have a finance background or a tech background, there's just like no way I can enter it. And it's an unfair thought to put into your head, because I think what it allowed me to do, especially entering such a creative space like this, is it has allowed me, I had to learn finance fundamentals. I'm still doing that since that's not like my core background. But there's so much more creativity you can pull, especially from the marketing side, into how you're thinking about getting the word out about things that are happening within this ecosystem. And it lent itself really well from being in spaces that didn't have a lot of like regulatory oversight in how you would do marketing, to be able to come in and really think more creatively about that approach. So, and for me, it was more so I was hungry for something that was going to challenge me, because working in, especially the hospitality space, where every single year you have the same holidays, you have the same things you're solving for, it just became very cyclical and easy. And I sometimes think back on this and I laugh, because I remember my interview with my former CEO, Eric. We sat down and he started explaining Bitcoin to me. And I was like, I have no idea what he's talking about. I'm going to tank this interview. So I was just asking a ton of questions. And at one point he was like, so what makes you stay at jobs? And I was like, well, I want something that's going to challenge me and that I'm going to like feel like I'm constantly learning from. And he just started laughing. He was like, I don't think you're gonna have a problem here. And there are days where I'm like, I just want to feel like I know something well, like something, just like something feels like I finally got it. But I think that's also the beauty of the space. So I think for me, that was more so like, it wasn't really scary because I didn't quite know what I was getting into, but I knew that could be fun to do for a little while. And the next thing I know, I'd been doing it for 4.5 years with them. And it broadened my ability to like learn on more global perspective challenges that people have, and how technology can help solve them. So, from my journey, I think that it was, it was one almost out of just like lack of knowledge and just being like, like, why not? Let's just see what happens. And then being able to grow a career that's brought me into higher level, like executive roles throughout that, I think has been, really, I'm very thankful for having had that journey. But a lot of it was just like being like, let's just see what happens and not worrying too much about what the outcome was going to look like.
Yeah. I love that. I think what you touched on is probably really relatable for a lot of people. I know I felt that way, even coming in from like having SheFi as a background to applying to my first full-time Web3 job. There's this sense of like, am I qualified and equipped to do this? Do I know enough? Should I really be trying to make this leap? And I would love to hear from the rest of you sort of similarly, sort of like, what are some skills that you have brought to the job that maybe came from your Web 2 careers that have really been important? And also just sort of advice on getting a similar job in crypto. I think a lot of people don't see a tangible transfer between the Web 2 and the Web 3 space. So I'd love to kind of destigmatize that a little bit and make that pathway a little bit more clear for some of our audience. And I'll let it open up for whoever wants to go first.
Yeah, I can comment on that. I think in terms of skills, right? I think there's a variety of skills. It really depends on, the type of roles that you're looking for. Like my role, for example, is general management, and in that role I obviously wear many hats, and I'm just using skills that that I've built throughout my career, right? It's like strategic thinking, the ability to execute, right? Collaborate cross-functionally, a lot of like soft skills. And of course, I also have, some background in traditional finance and some background in crypto, and more knowledge that is subject matter related. But I think, these are also general skills, right, that you need to bring to the table, especially as these type of companies are growing. They need all of those skills in-house. I think in terms of advice, I hire a lot of people. a lot of like research analysts, but also other people with other skill sets. I think if you, I guess it depends, right? What type of role you want to be in, right? There are some roles for which you don't need very specific crypto knowledge. I think in those type of roles, it suffices just to be passionate about crypto and really wanting to work in the space, and be really genuinely interested in the company that you want to work for. I think in the jobs where it does require some subject matter knowledge, in my mind, what is the most important thing, for example, if you want to be a research analyst, is to get some practical crypto experience. So the space is still hiring a lot of people, so these naturally are people. Crypto is so young, right, that come from all sorts of different spaces, but you need to have some practical experience, which you will in other words, get your hands dirty, that you need to build in your spare time, right? So on your evenings and weekends, and that means you need to be passionate about crypto in general. And what I mean by practical skills is, claim bounties, right? And that are related to the skills that you have. For example, from DAOs or from certain data companies. Start trying out Web3 applications. Actually get your hands dirty, play around with it. Research specific assets deeply, and then try to draw parallels for yourself. And maybe write about it, right? Write about it in your own blog. Even if no one reads it, if you can provide that as a writing sample, that's great. Or a couple of them, that's great. Get involved with DAOs, right? You can also approach it differently from like a data angle, right? Like if you're good with data, try to do stuff with that. But I think that is, for me, if you're looking at roles where subject matter experience is important, I think the most important thing is to get your hands dirty. And that is very different from something like, TradFi, where you maybe want to read up on a lot of things and talk about stuff knowledgeably. Sorry, I'm not even sure if I'm saying that the right way. Not a native speaker, but I think for crypto, you need to get your hands dirty in order to be able to do that.
Yeah, awesome. So one thing that actually came to mind when you were just talking through that, because I also have more recently been going through a lot of hiring, and especially when it comes to marketers, because you're not going to have a lot of marketers that are coming to you. I mean, I think that's one of the bigger pain points of talent that a lot of companies need is they're like, I need marketers, but how do I find them? You don't have as many people that are excited about that have marketing backgrounds. So I always kind of went into that as like, what I need from you is to have a core skill set. And it also depends on what level role you're hiring for, right? Like if it's more entry level, I think what March is getting at, which is so different in the last few years, is join a DAO, like get experience, build your portfolio on your own. And you're going to have to do that probably in your own time out of your 9 to 5 or whatever it is you're doing. But what companies want when you come to them and you've applied for a job, they're not always looking for someone who can say, I've been working in crypto for X period of time. That's not as important as here's the skills I have. Also, here's my portfolio of things I've been doing on my own. I just hired a team member who hasn't worked in crypto, but he has been obsessed with crypto. He comes from traditional finance space, has been obsessed with crypto for years now, and was like, I joined this DAO. Here's the work I did there. And then here's this. And through the interview, he was able to distill upon me all the knowledge he has that I know that he can take the things he was doing on his own and apply it to the skills that I actually need him to fundamentally have to do the job. And he was by far the best candidate for that role because of that. He didn't have to prove to me he had worked somewhere else and done that somewhere else. So I think building your portfolio is not only important, but it's way easier in the space now because you have so many opportunities to just get little projects here and there and start applying it and being able to build a portfolio off of that. And I think also like when it comes to entry level too, you can do a lot of that on the side, but showing that passion really, like, let's just say that you're applying for like a coordinator role or something. Being able to showcase, like, I went to school for this, here's some things I've done on the side, here's my portfolio, but also I know this much about NFTs or whatever your vertical is in crypto that you're super passionate about, especially for a company like Masari. We need people who are like super hungry and can demonstrate to us in an interview that they're in this. They're, both Karen and Rena mentioned just having this like passion for other things that just pulled them through this rabbit hole on their own accord, I think shows so much for employers when you're going through a hiring process. And I always like think curiosity is like when I'm talking out soft skills outside of hard skills, like, can you do the job? Because I need you to check these boxes. Even if you're still in an early stage of your journey, can you show me that you're really hungry? And I have another employee on my team who's been with me for quite a while now, Victoria, who I actually 2 years ago, she reached out to me on LinkedIn. She'd been in a completely different space. She was like, hey, I just found you. Can I talk to you? And we got on a phone call and chatted. And then 2 years later, I put this role up and she applied for it randomly. And I was like, I think I know this person. And so it was interesting connecting and realizing I'd spoken to her. And so I know we're going to get into the networking side of this, but there's like little things you can do to start to also build your network, to build that like social clout that then bleeds into people. This is a very small space, really. Everyone kind of knows each other. Yeah. So you can really make a lot of headway by also having someone who can vet for your skill set and then your passion into the space that way.
Totally.
Yeah, 100% on just the reaching out to people. That was going to be my advice, is just there's such a sense of community in the space, so that when you are going down this rabbit hole of what you're interested in, identify those people that have been successful, that you might even want to mimic their career trajectory, and just reach out. That's what I did. I reached out and just say, hey, I'm interested in X role. Can I just pick your brains for a minute? And be respectful. Definitely be respectful. Be appreciative of their time. But, more often than not, people are open to just hop on a quick call with you. And, you never know that in the process, you might even find yourself a mentor. And, like with skill set, I am a firm believer on transferable skills. Probably put that word in my cover letter way too much. But I think those are the foundations for you to be confident, to be able to leverage in any role. With my role right now on the sales side, with everyone on Masari, you need to have a certain level of understanding of the space. But since I am more customer facing, communication is really important. So that's being able to communicate in person over Zoom, or even just chatting with someone over Telegram, knowing how to communicate well, but also learning to adapt to the platform and the person you're talking to, their communication style, but not, missing out on the value prop you're trying to, convey. And then another big thing, I think, just going back to networking, relationship management is a really important skill to have, I think. In the sales side, it's easy to fall into the sentiment that when someone rejects or objects you, that your relationship is done there and then. But our industry is growing so fast; it's always changing. You never really know where the next opportunity is and even who it's with. So it's really important to manage relationships and learn to build those long-term relationships. And it's also just kind of fun keeping up to date with people, just seeing how they're doing, what they're building.
That's awesome. Karen, you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, definitely. I think I'll probably come from the perspective and narrow it down to just my role specifically as like a research analyst. The skills that I apply the most by far is just reading, writing, back to the basics. Like that's what I do almost, for the most of my day, like 9 to 5. And then also just those skills that you can always work on, which is like analysis, synthesizing the information. But I also wanted to emphasize what Emily was saying, which is, you have to have that curiosity. Every day when I'm researching, I most likely have no idea what the protocol or the project is that I'm researching about, but you have to have that curiosity to learn and to try and understand the technical things that might be really scary at the
I don't know
beginning.
if I fully agree with this point, but one of my friends told me that when he reads an article around Web3, he tries to never finish it because he hopes that he's clicking all of the hyperlinks and falling down different rabbit hole trails of the next interesting items, that he's getting like a full picture of what that piece was talking about. So definitely agree. Emily, I want to come back to something you and Rena also mentioned around mentorship, specifically female mentorship in the space. Would love to hear from all of you around who are your mentors, if you serve as a mentor to others, how those relationships developed, and then sort of along those lines, any advice you would give for finding mentors?
Yeah. So I I know this was one of the questions, and I actually took a lot of time to think about this last night, because I think it's natural to, like, none of the mentors I have in the crypto space are people that if I said their names, probably anyone would be like, oh, that person. I have women that since I started in this space have been like massive advocates for me. And there's still the people that I can call. They're all over the world. They're doing all sorts of different things. None of them are marketers, but they're people that I can call and be like, I had this frustrating thing happen today. Like, what do you think about it? Or, I would love some advice on doing XYZ. And we've just built, back to Rena's point, it's about like continuing to keep a relationship. So, build, even just checking in on people when I don't have a need, but just like, it's almost like we're just forming more like tighter connections, to the point where I don't think mentorships also need to come from people who are more senior than you. They can also come from below. So there's like a lot of learning that you can have across like all stages of your career journey. And I think the other thing that I think about when I think about mentorship is that I don't think, for me, it's not just been women in my life. It's also been men that have been massive advocates of me and have helped me over the course of my career. Because I think what's also allowed me, as far as when you're moving through your career, and especially if you have ambitions to move into more like managerial or leadership roles, and you're in a male dominated space, it's sometimes helpful to also have mentors that are men or from other, other groups outside of just being female, to help you understand how it might be to interact with your male counterparts. Like, this situation happens, like, how should I have thought about it? And getting like a dual perspective, I think, has been really helpful for me over the course of time. And a lot of times what I'll do too is that I'm now in the Southeast, in a smaller town, but I have networks of people I keep up with, and I have a spreadsheet. It's like everyone I've met, where they live. And when I go to New York, I'll like message a group of like 5 to 10 people, like, do you guys want to grab dinner? Bring someone that I don't know or that we don't know to this too, and try to kind of build a constant network up that way, so that there's always people you can learn from. It's like amazing the conversations you have with brand new people on a regular basis that you're like, especially because our vertical, so it's crypto, but there's like a million verticals within that. And remove from your head that you have to understand all of them, because that's just not possible. But you'll meet people that are like subject matter experts in XYZ, and they can always, it's like the amount of like mentors or people I have out there that I know can dive into things very quickly is so vast. And I think that's kind of the beauty of this ecosystem too, is that it's so globalized, it's so spread that, and there's so many different types of people from all walks of life that you can tap into. I have some really core people, like a smaller group, but then I'm excited constantly to kind of like broaden that and learn more over the course of time, because I think it makes me a better and more valuable member of this ecosystem. And then I also try to make sure in my head I'm paying it forward. Like, if there are people who reach out, all of our schedules are crazy, but like carving time out, I think, is important, because you know that you're getting that from other people too.
Love that.
100% on the spreadsheet. Definitely have one too. And just during the holidays, just reach out to people and say happy holidays. I'm thinking of you. It's really easy. For a while, I actually thought of mentorship. This is kind of embarrassing, but as a relationship that you have to define, where I have to reach out and say, hey, can you be my mentor? And that was kind of weird. I never really felt comfortable enough. But now I realize, anyone that advocates for you, as Emily said, that, can give you advice that you can call up is a mentor. And at that, just reframing it like that, I realized I've had so many mentors throughout my career, even from someone who rejected me from a job, but liked me so much that she kept in touch and kept offering, other positions, and, that she knew, and that she was sending my resumes out for me. She was kind of doing the legwork for me, even though she rejected me for a job. But it was because, I did the extra work of keeping in touch with her, letting her know that, hey, I moved to DC. Hey, I'm still looking for a job in this space. And, just having that long-term kind of interaction will pay off.
Love that.
Yeah, I actually agree with that, because first of all, I agree with all that Emily and Rena said, but I think, also from if you want to break into the space, it's also good to have mentors and female mentors in particular, right? Because I think one of the ways, to break into the space like it's like to get referred by someone. I hire a lot of people. By far, my preferred way of hiring is to get someone referred, because it just makes my life so much easier. Because there's such a broad variety of people applying to jobs in crypto, including a lot of people that you would never hire, to say it respectfully. And so, having someone else as a referral, that is just hugely valuable. And I think from that perspective, it's also good, right, to have mentors, not just as a referral, but also people that are looking out for you and flagging, potential job opportunities.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that something I love about the crypto space is how literally I found that no one is out of reach. If I want to reach out to a female founder or a male or whoever it is, my experience is that everyone always replies and everyone's always up for a chat. And I think it's because of the nature of the space, which is just everyone's trying to help each other. There's something bigger that we're building. So yeah, definitely reach out to anyone that you think could be your mentor, even if you think it's really silly, because even if they're busy, most times they do reply.
And that is something that's very different from traditional finance, where people would never do that, or people would never respond. And I think in technology in general, but in particular in crypto, people are very open to that. And particular if if you have something interesting to say, or even more the reason to reach out.
Yeah. I do feel like I would gather some of that is because we're such a creative world. We're all creatives in a lot of ways, and you can get so much energy from just interacting with new people too over time that it's almost worth, even anyone who's reaching out or on either side of the spectrum to have a conversation, because you just don't know what could come out of it.
Yeah, I would say also with that, when someone does give you the time of day, please be prepared. Find out their life story, figure out what questions you want to ask. Think of a couple questions. You don't have to go by a script, but make sure that, you are putting their time, their value to their time, and be prepared to why you're asking for, 30 minutes of their time.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. I hope, did I cut someone off? Are we all good? Okay. So along those lines, thinking about networking, and, we're talking a lot about direct outreach, wondering you all's take around attending networking events, specifically conferences, how to manage those situations that seem really overwhelming. What is your personal strategy when you're preparing to attend all of these crazy Web3 conferences? And again, sort of, how would you provide some guidance to someone who maybe is like a little bit newer and looking to build relationships, rather than on the BD side where they're already employed trying to sell a product?
I think, first of all, do your homework before you go to a conference, and be very clear about what your objectives are, and and what conference is going to be most beneficial to you, right? Because they're very different in terms of the type of audiences that they attract, and the quality as well. And so I think that's number one. I think number two, just don't be shy. Just talking to strangers, just walking up to people and started talking to them is like it's the biggest favor that you can do yourself, because you never know who it is. And if it's not a great conversation, fine, right? You just walk away after like 5 minutes. But I think that is the best way to get to meet people and find common ground. And I think also go to after hours events, because especially earlier on in the evening, because that's a really great way as well, to connect with people. And to be honest, I've got to know a lot of people at these events that are like, across the board, like from high-powered people to people, at all levels and at all stages of their career, and a lot of people that I still talk to and be in touch with, and have some of these, mentor type of, or people looking out for each other type of relationships with.
I love conferences, both, from my role and just, the networking perspective of it. I think just have fun with it. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Be organized when you do attend networking events. Afterwards, kind of either write down or just later on have back to the spreadsheet. But, remember who you spoke to and follow up with them afterwards, even if you don't think it will lead anywhere. Just say, hey, it was great meeting you. A quick tip that I actually got that's been really useful, especially when you start going to a lot of different events at conferences, is if the other person's open to it, but take a picture with them when you do add them on Telegram or, whatever platform it is, so that you both remember who each other are. And, just have fun with it, be organized, and also kind of figure out what you're trying to get out of it, right? Because there's so many different events for so many different spaces in the industry. So if you're really focused on building in DeFi, find out what those events are, start going to them, meet the people who maybe even host the events, talk about what future events they're having to, and then you start kind of having this agenda for yourself of what you're going to do in the short term.
I definitely second the take a photo approach, because a lot of times the people you meet only have PFPs, and then once you meet them, you can't remember who they are anymore. I also love conferences. I think it's if you've chosen the right one for you, it's a high concentration of people that are all passionate about the same thing as you. So whether it's like geeking out or like networking, I think they're both really useful. A tip would be before you go to a conference, there's so many discords like SheFi, Boys Club, and all the other ones. A lot of people will speak about the conference beforehand, talk about the events that they're excited for, and they'll also share heaps of spreadsheets. So that's also a good way of planning. Back to the spreadsheets again.
Yeah, one thing I also honestly would add that you guys made me think of is from my first conference experience ever was when I was in college, fully not really in the space yet in any formal way, and just took notes on some of the speaking engagements that I went to and put up a random blog post or even tweeting about it afterwards. I have a friend who has no following on Twitter, but they've built the most beautiful thought log of anyone I've ever seen on Twitter just by posting commentary they care about. And I think that the second they want to make a pivot into the space, that's going to be one of the most valuable things they could have done, is attaching their name to their thoughts publicly. So I think writing is another really good way to share insights. And so thinking as well, I think we talked about this a little bit earlier, but in terms of external engagement, I would love to know if any of you are involved in any groups outside of Masari, DAOs, other committees, things like that. Obviously, for me, big part of SheFi, but would love to know if you all have any communities that you're really passionate about contributing to outside of Masari.
Yeah, I'll go first. I'm a part of a lot of the female communities. That's kind of where I started. The first NFT that I minted was a 1989 Sister, and it's where I felt the most comfortable from the beginning. So at the moment, I've joined Boys Club and We3, X Collective. I'm also a DAO member for Computer Cowgirls, who are just doing a really incredible job. Are you also a Computer Cowgirls member?
I just bought my membership.
Oh, yay. They're doing an amazing job with all the pro-choice and abortion rights in America. I think I'm like fairly attached to my identity because now I'm like listing off the ones. Another DAO that I'm a part of is called DAO Under, which is a community focused on Australians and Asia Pacific crypto people as well. And then also NFT communities because they're quite fun.
I mean, I have to admit, I'm a little like, I feel like I'm an like old school crypto person. I have not actually gotten into the DAO space yet. But I will tell you, someone who's on this call, right, Karen, right here, she has this massive spreadsheet of these, and we've been talking about how we get more involved in them as a company. And I went in and I actually bought an NFT. I can't remember which of the groups it was just last week, but it was like getting in all the Discord chats and like getting into that world a little bit more. I wished, honestly, I had a lot more time to dig into it, which is, I just need to carve it out. But I think I would love to learn more about it for sure. And I think it's interesting because I feel like people who are coming into the like Karen's story, 2021, those are the people who are actually like getting into the networking such a different way than those of us who've been in it for a few years, because it's like the world keeps cycling in different ways of networking. Whereas I think for me too, I really still love face-to-face. As much as I can do face-to-face networking, to me, it's like it allows me to actually see the face and actually know who that person is. But it is to me, it's an interesting next step to figure out how to connect that digitally a little bit more. But on my like one-to-one, I brought up earlier, like I do like to make sure when I'm traveling that I can reach out to a handful of people and do networking in that kind of capacity. And I always do try to make sure that if it's like a group of like 5 women I know really well, that I ask them, hey, do you guys have any new people you've met that you could bring? So that it helps me broaden that. But I think it just always adds like an additional dynamic to that kind of networking setting. But I think that it is an interesting space that I'm still trying to kind of figure out how to get my feet into. But thank you, Karen, for allowing there to be that learning.
Yeah, I was definitely involved a lot more, in my getting my hands dirty stage. But I do want to get more involved in different DAOs now. So Karen, let's talk. And I do think being involved, I do want to say, make sure you're not joining different DAOs and organizations just to pad up your resume or your portfolio. Find things that you really are interested in and that you can contribute to, or even that can bring value to yourself. And also, don't be afraid to form a community on your own. A group of my friends actually formed, a little community on our own, and you're just constantly bouncing off ideas, and you might even build something of your own just amongst your friends.
I love that. That's really cool. Awesome. Okay. Well, I want to be cognizant of time and answer some community questions in a moment, but just to kind of wrap up from our end, any sort of final advice that you have or thoughts you think around overcoming some of the hurdles for getting more women into the space? Would love to hear your thoughts on sort of diversifying Web3 and how we move forward as an ecosystem.
I have one overarching thought that I always think about, and I think it happens when we're, anytime Masari, because we are a remote office, but anytime that we are together, usually we try to do something to have the women kind of sit down. And there's like a constant narrative of like, I don't feel comfortable speaking up because of X, or I feel like I need to know XYZ before I can do this. And remove it from your head, because I think it's a humongous barrier, not only for people starting to apply for jobs, but also once you get a job, like how do you feel safe in that job? How do you start to kind of build compassion for yourself and build, more confidence in yourself? And though it comes from a lot of different areas, and of course, spending more time within a role, I think a lot of it is just knowing that there's a very different way that men and women function within the workplace. And having worked in tech now for close to 8 or 9 years, I do find that my male counterparts, no matter what, they a lot of times feel a lot more confident speaking up. It doesn't matter what role they're at, what stage they're at. And whereas I might have a really good idea and I'm just not vocalizing it, and someone else says it, I'm like, I knew that was right. Why didn't I say something? Say something. And you can always pose it in a way that it's like, I just have a thought. I don't know how this will go, but what about X? And it might be the thought of the day that makes the difference. And you don't have to come at that like, this is the way this works. You can come at it as like an exploratory type of way. And I think that should be in how you approach getting a job, of like, don't feel like you got to go learn everything that has to do with everything in order to be prepared to get a job. Like jobs are partially here to teach you. Like your employers are partially here to teach you. So as someone who has teams and grows teams myself, like I don't expect every employee to come in and have every skill set. Like I think that's just it's not a productive way to think. And I think women tend to be really hard on themselves. So try to remove it. It's always going to be an internal monologue. Every day of my work day is like that. Every meeting, there's always something that's kind of in the back of my head. But I, over the years, have started to teach myself that even if I say something that's wrong, I learn from the mistake if I am corrected. And I'll also, on the flip side of that, it's like might be the most brilliant idea of the day. And that's awesome for me. So I always try to make sure that when we're having these discussions that I like push that because it's a constant narrative I have to think about. But I think like, especially for women younger in your careers, it's hard. You almost have to build up the momentum to realize that's how the world works and that it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to say things that you don't 100% know about yet, but that's how you enter the conversation and start to build up confidence.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think what you see is that I think women tend to have imposter syndrome often from that perspective. And I think, just do your homework. Don't overdo it, but do your homework. Apply and make sure that when you apply for these roles, and it's not through referral, make sure that you include some kind of cover letter, right? Where you comment on, why you're interested in crypto, what you've done in the space, what type of practical experience you have, what you're looking to do. It's so often, I'm excited when I see women apply because there isn't that many of them. But at the same time, it's also really helpful. Often you can't figure out from a resume, right? Well, what practical experience people have. And that's just really helpful to know because, everyone's busy and you don't want to waste your time, like if it doesn't look like someone is a potential candidate. But yeah, so do that. And and just be confident, especially if you feel pretty sure that you have something to offer for the space and you're determined to break in, just be confident because we do need more women in the space.
Yeah, I think when you're early in your career and you're eager and you're hungry and driven, it's really easy to equate what you know to self-worth. And then when you don't know something, you're afraid to ask for it, especially if you're a woman in a male-dominant industry, because you feel like that kind of equates to your qualifications, your self-worth. But honestly, ask questions. Just ask the question. Someone's going to be there to help you. If that one person doesn't know, ask someone else. And through that process, you're learning and you're asking questions, a way to learn to be more upfront about what you need.
I also just want to say, even though I'm a research analyst at Masari now, 6 months ago, I did not know what WAGMI meant. Sorry. I did not know what LFG was. Diamond hands, paper hands, never used Discord before. Twitter was not for work purposes. It's the technology in itself is quite difficult. So just be patient. The terms are quite exclusionary when you're, just jumping into the space. But, when you join communities like SheFi and Boys Club, I love what you guys are doing because I think it's such a safe environment for people to ask these questions. Yeah, that's me.
I was on mute. Okay. Oh, amazing. Okay, so I know we only have 7-ish minutes left. Robin just asked, what are the best ways to be an effective ally to women in Web3?
I mean, I think it depends on what kind of support you're offering. Like, for example, in a work setting, if you have female colleagues, making them feel like if they have a really good idea, reinforcing that for them. Because again, going back to, the narrative in the back of your head, anytime that I'm talking through things and I have a male counterpart or otherwise that says, that's a great idea, Emily. And it makes me feel this sense of comfort really quickly in a sea of typically male faces on a screen. And so I think that can just help, it helps in such a small way. If we're thinking just super tactically about how you can support. And I think just more broadly, always being able to just, going back to mentorship, I think that there is a sense of females do want that mentorship on both sides. So maybe if you have a few female friends that are trying to make their way into the space and you're already there, you have good tips, providing that guidance if it's asked upon you, I think can be really helpful. And then just in general, I feel rewarding for ideas. There have been jobs I've had in this space where I will have good ideas and I'll bring them up in a meeting and somehow they'll be attributed to someone else. And I'm like, what the actual hell? And and the person is attributed to, well, they'll be like, I didn't bring that up, but they won't say anything. So it's like, give credit where credit's due, because it is, I think it can be really hard to be kind of a minority voice in a room. And because it can be so hard to speak up, like having that support from other entities is really, really important. So I think from like in a workplace setting, that's the first thing that kind of pops into my mind. Like, how can you be an ally in that sense?
I think maybe another one is, if you are in the power of, in the position of power as a woman, know that even though you are talking to someone, a female who's trying to reach out to you, you are still in the power of position, and there might be a change in that dynamic. So be aware of that when you're speaking to them. Be open about it. Let them know that you are here to help, so that they can feel comfortable reaching out to you, even though it might seem like a safe environment to you. The other person who's younger might not feel that way.
Yeah, love that. I know we only have 4 minutes left. We had some questions that were answered about applying to Masari. Otherwise, we had a few on being more later stage in your career, being established at 7+ years in e-commerce and thinking about how to make a leap, but not sure how experience translates. I had commented back, anything sales, BD, strategy, and growth is super valued right now. But if anyone has anything else to add onto that, because I feel like a lot of what we're doing is like a derivative of e-commerce.
Well, that, and there's literally any vertical that exists probably has some sort of crypto equivalent. So if you go to Masari Governor, you can actually do a search for different types of DAOs that might fit into the landscape that you're trying to discover. Just as a plug there. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a lot of things, I think, on that side, that there's equivalents literally for anything. You just have to do your research.
Totally.
Yeah, and I think if you're more senior, right? There's we actually hire quite a number of people in more mid-level or senior positions that come from other industries. I think one thing that every firm at our stage needs is people that can execute, right, in a number of different roles. And those are the kind of things that usually come from having a number of years of experience under your belt. So I would definitely keep that in mind. And there's loads of opportunity out there, and perhaps try to find a couple of mentors that can help you guide. I can imagine that it's overwhelming, right? Because there's so much out there, and where do you start and stuff. But if you put in the work on your end, people are definitely willing to help you and guide that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, ladies. This was amazing. Just a plug for our audience, thank you so much for joining us. Please check out Massari and all of their offerings. And also, if you have questions for any of us, engage us on Twitter. I'm also redropping the link. SheFi has opened season 7 applications to join our community. So please apply if you're interested. Definitely a great first step if you're looking to get into Web3. As I mentioned, just keep at it and reach out to us if you have questions. And we are excited to see where you will end up on your journeys. Thank you so much, Massari ladies. This was awesome.
Thanks so much, Porter.
Thanks.
For everyone joining.